We are live. So today we got a recurring guest that came already many times around. You can now present yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm mathblitz. Currently, I am I am not queued inside Global League, but in my last pass through, I reached a new high. I got up to about rank 4 on the fog ladder. So at this point, I am probably solidly good at the fog game. Um, I have a bit more work to do before I can challenge any of the fog gods like Inku, Arc, or Go, but steps. I'll get there. I will return to fog with a vengeance and push for the top.
So that's very good to know, and I think you really increased since the last time because I think you were 1300 something last time, and now you're
I was
1400.
right at the border. I was right at the border. I was at like 1390 for a very long time. Actually, the last time we played, I was probably closer to 1370. I rejoined and I played a little bit of High Funds and I played a little bit of Standard, and then I got some good wins in Fog, and yeah, I am now at 1430.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Man, I'm glad you're back. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming back. It's always amazing having you. So what do you think about this map?
So Stalingrad is one of the classic, like very very good maps. It's a very open map, so there are a lot of things that you can try. There's a lot of options at all points of the game. Um, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I see you're just enabling that. Um, it's just a very large, very high funding map that really encourages good large army tactics, which for most of your viewers is going to mean death falling, which means taking all of your units, putting them in one giant clump, and shoving them into the enemy. But this gets a little bit more complicated at higher levels. Some more things about the map. People sometimes think that there are strong sides and weak sides to the map. This little pipe seam that kind of goes up like this makes people think that this part is the weak side of the map, and the this bottom part is the strong side for Blue Moon. But in reality, the this is not true. Since your army is usually going to get past this pipe, uh, there's not really a truly weak side on the map. You can choose to push on your comm tower side or not on your comm tower side, because vehicles from this base will reach both sides at the same time. Now, the pipe does have a little bit of effect. The two things that I can think of when I look at this map is one, support for reaching this corner city is a little bit not great because obviously you'd have to go around the pipe. And so what that means is that this corner city is technically Red Fire's, and this one is technically yours. But in practice, it's not that big of a deal. The bigger deal is that infantry from this middle base struggle to get to this area of the map. So most infantry that are going to come over into this comm tower side come from the weak base. What this means is that in your capture phase, the lines are a little bit different. Like you can only reach up to about this line of this city to this comm tower before it's possible to start to contest cities. And the same thing on the other side. But then once the cities are captured, once say these two contested cities are captured, you don't usually don't have any trouble like holding on to them. It's just a struggle to capture them initially because again, there's a lot of cities in the way and only one base of infantry that can realistically reach up here. So, other things that are important about this map are to recognize where the contested cities are. So the contested cities start up here inside the corner, and then it is these two cities. These two cities are actually very difficult for Blue Moon to deny. So these aren't really contested, but these two definitely are. The comm tower, kind of not really. There's some shenanigans that can happen, but in generally it's not hard to secure. This city, these two cities in the center, and then reflected on the other side. This city is contested. These two cities are contested, and then this corner. So in total, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 contested cities. So 10,000 funding up for grabs, which is more than enough if you can capture a large majority of them to push yourself to the win.
Now this is very interesting. I want to add this up. In my Halo, at least, I never thought of this map this way. Usually, this map belongs to this side, and this belongs to this side. Now, this one depends on both player if they are really aggressive, but most of the time in my Halo, this one belongs to here, and this one belongs to there. And these two in the center, this one belongs here and this one belongs there. So in my ILO, we only got like this one that is kind of contested, this one, and this one, and this one. These are really like the four more contested in my ILO at least. So this is very interesting to have like your perspective. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. It's very interesting because in lower ILO it's not the case. It's very different.
Yeah, so it's a mixture of where infantry can be at different points of the game, plus like tank reinforcement timings. This is just my experience, but in reality, there's just like a bunch of these cities, and which ones you can take and which ones you can't take depends on how many resources you devote towards capturing them or denying them from your opponent, which we'll see during this game. Other things you should know is that there are many viable openings. There is a T-copter rush where you get the airport really fast. There are APC openings from every single one of the bases. There are recon openings at the start, which you employ. There are like B-copter rush strategies. There are ignoring recons. There's like spamming infantry for a while and building tanks. There's a lot of different ways to approach the opening for this map, and almost all of them are viable. They just have different benefits, and they have different like pros and cons basically. And we'll talk a little bit about that throughout this game. I can't cover every single opening type, but we'll talk about the openings that you and I each use and what their benefits and problems are.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. You speak about transport, you speak about recon and battlecopter. In lower ILO, the battlecopter opening is rare. I barely see it. And it's funny because I don't know how effective this is, but in lower ILO, I actually have two transport really early in the game, and most of the time I'm able to secure both corner, and sometimes I can cheese out one of the buildings. But I think it's only because I'm lower ILO, and sometimes recon just go nuts. I'm so fed up with all of these maps letting like recon opening. I mean, recon opening is boring. If like I did it here because I'm not that great of a player, and I usually most of the time when I'm Sasha or any CO, my recon opening is not to be aggressive. It's to gather intel and sometime like learning where the enemy is. And this is what I was doing with you, and I just happened to like end up like denying you a building for a turn, but at the end it didn't pay off well, and I think that we are not there yet, but I think that that was the first of many mistakes. Now,
yeah, we'll talk about that for sure.
Speaking about the COs, we did speak before the stream how much you like hawke, but why did you pick hawke?
Yeah, so we talked about, well, so my general opinion when it comes to fog is I pick Von Bolt if I have to. There are a few maps where no tier 1 CO but Von Bolt is actually viable. So if I have to pick Von Bolt, I do. I never pick Sturm. I hate playing Sturm. I hate playing against Sturm. I think he is a terrible CO design, and I absolutely despise him.
I agree with you on that. I also feel like Sturm should not be part of Global League, because I know like Von Bolt and Javier Bolt really are hard counter for Sturm, and even hawke in bigger maps. Hawke is just broken because of his global damage, but Sturm day to day is just too good. It's too strong. It breaks the game, in my own opinion. So that's why I think you should be banned from Global League. You should always be considered zero, even if like some matchup are not that great for him, like Javier or Von Bolt. He doesn't belong in tier 1 for me, at least. Like place him against Grid. Grid has no chance. Place him against Sasha. Sasha has maybe Sasha has a bit of chance if she's really really good with Sasha, because her day to day is kind of good if you're good with her and good using her. But even there, Stern day to day is just a monster. It's just too good. That's why I feel like he shouldn't be part of Global League. But here again, this is a 900-ish speaking.
So in theory, I am okay with Sturm. The problem with Sturm is that it's the mirror matchup. When you have a Sturm versus Sturm, 80% attack against 120 defense leads to a very annoying, like long stally game that, like, I think Rhizosphere had a Sturm versus Sturm game on like Redemption World that lasted like 80 days. And it's because Sturm doesn't have like a lot, like he's very slow, he doesn't have like a lot of breakthrough power. So any map where Sturm is good, like very good because of his infantry movement or recon shenanigans, makes it so that Sturm mirrors are a thing, and anytime there's a Sturm mirror, I think it's very bad for the game. So that is my issue with Sturm. This is why I refuse to play Sturm.
Sturm is toxic, bro.
Yeah, because fundamentally, like fights with Sturm against another CEO can be interesting, but Sturm against himself is just pain for everyone involved, and that's why I don't like the CEO design. Honestly, the CEO design would be okay if they flipped it. If you had like 120% attack but 80% defense, that'd actually be kind of interesting.
It would be like probably like maybe tier 4 because defense is
no,
essential.
I don't think he'd be tier 4. He has like Grimm's problem is that yes, he has like 80% defense, but his bigger issue, at least in standard, is that people can always just like edge him out, right? Because all of the tier 4 CEOs have movement boosting powers, so they can just put themselves right at the edge of his range and then slowly threaten powers, which is Grimm's big issue. Sturm doesn't have those issues. His vehicles and especially his recons have huge movement, and in Fog his recons, the fact that he has so many recons gives him more intelligence in fighting power.
Yeah,
I think he'd still be tier 1. It probably wouldn't make him stronger. It probably would make him weaker. Maybe I could see him side tier 2, but I think it'd still be pretty good.
Grim
But more importantly,
Grim is really bad.
The Sturm mirror wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be horrible to watch.
Yeah. But Sturm with these stats, I don't see him being that high, tier 2 or 1. I know it's good, like, breaking the map the way Sturm does, but defense is so important. If you got lower defense, your CO becomes really bad fast. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You are in charge.
I understand when like low defense is so bad, and I had like a very long discussion with Shu about this. But to be honest, I'm not convinced, right? Because defense is only a problem if you get hit first, and in Fog that is not necessarily guaranteed. There's a lot of I am still convinced that like Grim has a place in Fog. I haven't worked out what it is yet, or how like what the map should look like, or how to play him. But I think that there's like a style or a way to play him so that he actually has ideas, at least inside tier 4. But making that a reality is going to be it's going to take a while. Also, as a side note, it might be a good thing for you to add chapters to your videos. They tend to run on the long side anyways, and I'm sure your viewers might want to skip past a lot of this like beginning talk to get straight into the game match review.
Yeah.
Oh, but to answer your original question, I pick Von Bolt if I have to. I pick Javier if he's viable, which he's not on this map because there's some pressure you can do on the comm towers, and then I pick Hawke otherwise. Eventually, I'm going to start picking up Sasha, but I'm not quite ready to start playing her, at least at my current level. I'm probably going to spend some time on an alt playing her before I'm confident that I can play her at a top tier level on my main.
I think she is very interesting. That's why I picked her, and that's why I want to main her in tier 1 because I think she is the most interesting one. Uh, the only reason why she is not better or more used, it's because she's really hard to use. Like, her strength is money, her strength is building. The moment you're even in terms of building with your opponent is the moment you lose. And this is what makes her interesting because you can take away her day to day. And that's like a big weakness. That's why she's interesting. She has weakness other seal don't, because the other seal you cannot really take away their weakness. Even like for example Max. Even if you use her power and get extra firepower, your artillery will still have bad range. Even if you use your power with Jess, your copter and your infantry, they will remain normal instead of stronger. So all seals, if you use their power, you can maybe fix their weakness, but Sasha doesn't fix her weakness by using her power. She doesn't fix it because all she does is like deny yours and getting a small buff. But that's nothing game changing for Sasha. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's the interesting part of her, because she's harder to use, but she's really
Yes,
good.
she is very difficult to use. I think we've talked about this in previous videos, but the way that I like to think about Sasha is that she is Von Bolt, that trades being able to use her power every turn, to have those stats every turn for 10% more funds. And I've done some more thinking since the last video that we've done, and I think there is maybe a better, a better way to describe her, which is that she is an initiative CO. She always gets things before the opponent, and you have to use that like 1 to 2 turns where she can have a certain unit, but your opponent cannot, to get advantages. And then again, to reference previous videos, you did a stream with Go7 where he talked a lot about utilizing Sasha's income advantage, and this comes in 2 forms. One is spamming up B-copters along with everything else that you normally make to get a unit count advantage and a like air advantage. And then the second way is doing a fast tech up to heavier tanks, both of which are things that Sasha can do earlier in the game than other COs can potentially do. When you do both of them this game, and we'll talk about it because it was good, but then there were additional issues, but they have nothing to do with your Sasha gameplay,
Yeah.
which is quite good, but more to do with general fog tactics.
Yeah. So let's move on if you want, except if you would like to add something else to the very long intro, but a relevant one and interesting one, because it's always relevant. You always bring good points. I like your intros. You're like Can't-Buy in some ways.
That's very flattering. I appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the game. Beginning moves are generally not particularly... there's not a lot that needs to be said. We go and we capture our base. We go and we capture the cities next to us. And this is... Oh, no, it's the next turn. Oh, yeah, so here's an important thing. I neglect this city for a few turns to push out. It's because I want to establish units over here earlier to start like capturing these chains before I go and I back cap this city. It's just, you don't have to do this, but I sometimes in Fog you want to like do back caps later just because you need to establish presence outwards first. Okay, so here is the first major choice that you make. You make a turn, I think this is a turn 3 recon.
Yeah.
So on Stalingrad, your first vehicle matters a lot. And it matters a lot for that presence, right? We want to establish presence along the contested front. And your first vehicle choice matters a lot for what that presence looks like. When you make a recon, what you're saying is, I am going to punish greedy caps along this contested front, and that is what I am looking to do inside my early game. If you build an APC, what you're saying is I'm looking to capture like these areas faster, so that I can like establish presence farther. If you build a tank, what you're saying is I am expecting my opponent to make a recon and try to challenge me. I'm gonna try to catch him slipping, hitting something, and then I'm going to like cripple that recon, and then continue my cap phase unabated. These are all potential strategies. And then if you're like insane and you're go 7, then you only make infantry and then you make 2 artillery later because, haha, I can do these things because I go.
Yeah, I will say two things. The first one, usually I don't open up Recon because I think this is one of the most boring opening ever. Sometimes I do because I feel like it, but I really don't like that opening. I think it's overused, everyone likes it, and it's too popular, that's why it's boring. The more popular this is, the more boring this is, you know? And second, it's Stalingrad, and the main reason why I like Stalingrad so much is all the transport option, all the chain you can create just because you got a transport. So usually in this map, I go APC instead of Recon. I almost never use Recon opening. As I said, I don't like it because it's boring. And I also said it earlier. Now, I'd like to have your take on it. Is it overkill to have like 1 APC and 1 transport copter? Is it overkill? Is it too many transport?
Oh no, not at all. It's if you build a transport copter and APC as your first vehicles, you run into a little bit of trouble as far as like early vehicle skirmishes. And you can get punished pretty hard if I decide to go multiple recons in the opening. This is actually something that happened in a game where I was playing against Cookie Lamb, where he basically did that. He knew that like I would be looking to get some like transport shenanigans, so he just spammed out 3 recons, and punished me really hard for it. So it's not a problem. The only time it's a problem is if you do the same thing every game. If you do the same opening every game, people will select an opening to that hard counters what you're doing.
Yeah.
So as long as you're mixing it up, sometimes making recon, sometimes making transport, sometimes making tank, sometimes doing what you're doing here and rushing the airport, as long as you're giving those all a good mix.
I
you're
actually
probably...
always rush the airport, just to let you know I'm a big fan of airport. Especially at Sasha.
So here you rush the airport with this infantry, which is probably not advisable. The reason why is that this infantry can make it there at the same time. So like there's not much of a difference between using this space to get this airport and using this space, but by sending this infantry back, you're a little slow to get to some of these buildings later. So if you're going to do this, I would actually recommend that you send the very first infantry back to cap this this airport. Or you can do this, but you do it as me, as player 1, where you don't have that extra infantry to go for this base first. Then this makes sense.
Okay. So I will say this. DPSI told me the same thing, and I understand, guys. Thank you for helping, but here's my thought process. This little guy there, instead of going there, I like it to go here. And as you said, I will maybe lack infantry is there. I think that's the biggest flaw of what I'm doing. But in my mind, it's still a good, even if this is a chain there, it's still a good move because I want this little guy to go here.
You will see how I deal with this how I get the city, because it's actually an important note about Stalingrad in particular. And you'll also see, I can't be sure, but I suspect that this early tempo loss is the reason why I capture this contested city much later in the game. Because you're just too slow to get out here. But these are the repercussions of going for this move.
Yeah.
Essentially, you give up tempo here. So I establish a foothold. Now, when we get there, we'll get there. All right. So here I go for an APC. This is a very interesting move. Basically, what I'm looking to do here is I notice that this city is 7 units away. So if I move the APC here, I'll be able to boost this infantry to take here, and then I'll be able to take another infantry that I built from this base the next turn and shove it somewhere pretty far over here, which lets me establish a lot of presence. This is how you want to be thinking about when you use APCs. You want to accelerate different cities that otherwise couldn't be reached as fast. And then you want to make sure you are grabbing as far out as possible without exposing yourself to recons. Now, I like doing this kind of greedy opening with an APC on this side of the map, because again, we've established that this base should be making mostly infantry, and it's really this space that would need to make a recon to punish my greedy transport. But if they make a recon, then they're already slow to capture these cities anyways. Now, a player that like knows me pretty well and is looking to counter me may do that, but I also sometimes go for tank first, so it's not guaranteed. And if you make a recon here and you don't find greedy caps of these cities, then you're very sad, because you lose too much economy.
Now,
But so you go for a recon.
I do like your
Mhm.
opening. I like your opening 10,000 more than mine. It's such a
This
cool
is
opening.
this is the APC from the top base variation. I followed up with a second APC, which is very greedy, but I was in a particularly greedy mood when I got to that. So my thought process here, right, is that I know that you're going to beat me out to most vehicle builds. So I am looking to make a cost-effective army, which means that I want like mechs in my army, I want like artillery, and I want to capture contested cities as fast as possible to like try not to get too far behind on income, and then use my more efficient units to kind of balance out the fact that I make less money than you.
Yeah.
Now, something that so I'm not sure you were aware about this, but I had an alt called Apostrophe, where Go7 convinced me to turn it into a Sammy only alt, where I was only playing Sammy, and the account was already at 1200 fog, so it was like already fairly strong, and I was playing Sammy on at all tiers. So I played actually an Olaf on this map, and I discovered that Sammy actually isn't that bad, and mechs can actually be useful. It's through a process where you basically turn a base into a half mech factory. We'll talk a little bit more about what this looks like, but because transports can transport mech out like pretty far, building transports can be very good for getting effective defense just inside the line that is the contested front. So my gameplay as we go on is to like set up mechs for cost-effective trades if you push into me, but it failed because you push on a different side of the map. But we'll talk about that more as we get there.
You know, that's funny. That makes me laugh because you inspired me during that game. After that, I had the Global League in one of my alternate accounts, and this is my Orange Star only alternate account, I think. No, actually no, it's one of my main. One of my main basically at Stalingrad, and after watching you playing this game, you inspired me. And this game I played in Stalingrad with someone else. I picked Sammy, and I actually forgot who was my opponent, but I basically had mech heavy and transport heavy without mech spamming, but I had heavy mech, and I steamrolled the guy. I really overwhelmed him, and at some point he shows up with medium tank. I had bombers, bro. That was the slaughterhouse, man. That was violent, and you inspired me.
Well, I'm happy that you liked it. I will say Sammy is not good on this map, but you kind of follow like I kind of pay attention to like what the meta is, what people think, and I like finding places where people's assumptions aren't aligned with reality. So the common knowledge is that mech are terrible, and that is true to an extent.
Only Sammy there to use them.
But they have usefulness, they have purposes, they have ways that you can use them, and they're good in like small doses. And because people sleep on them, because people aren't like paying attention to how to use them, I like to incorporate them inside my gameplay just as like a little like, I don't know, fun Easter egg or something. I think you found this out the hard way inside your game with Advanced Warrior against Confe and Go, where Go really let the mech spam go crazy. Now Go takes it to like an almost disrespectful like level where he builds only mechs. This does have its weaknesses, but it can be hard for people to understand how to fight against it unless you played that style, tried it for yourself, and then found out how it sucks for specifically attacking. Um, Anyways, yeah, so I wouldn't recommend building a ton of mech, but at the same time, the community's reluctance to use them is too far in the other direction. They still have uses, they still have a purpose, and they're still good. You just have to be a little bit more careful about how you use them. All right. Let's keep going. Again, the most important bits in this opening is that you have a recon that's coming out here. What this means is that for this to be a good opening, you need to hit something. And we'll talk about why hitting something's actually good when we get to when we get to that point where you have this choice and you don't take it. All right, and I built an APC, which means I am pushing out here, and that is what I should do. I should be rushing as many infantry out to the front as I can to try to secure these cities as early as possible, and maybe sneak a cheeky cap of this city or this city, which are the easiest for me to take.
I will repeat myself. I think I already said it many times. When I do recon opening, it's not to be aggressive, it's to gather intel. And sometimes I can delay a building, but here's the thing. I have seen so many recon just dying because they were like, oh, I will harass infantry, and then boom, a tank shows up, and because chip damage, the tank one-shot the recon. And I got some kind of PTSD linked to that.
As you push into higher MMRs, you need to be more clever about your intel gathering. And you need to, recons are useful for getting information, but there's other ways to get it too. This early inside the game, if you're just looking to gather intel, a day 4 recon would do that just as well as a day 3 recon. The only reason to build a recon that early is to try to disrupt my capture phase. So, let's go into some specifics. First off, the movement of this recon onto the city is actually a mistake. And the reason why is that seeing this area of the map does you absolutely no good. There's almost never going to be anything here. Maybe I've diverted an infantry to capture something, but it doesn't give you a lot of information, right? If I've made APCs, they're going to be rushing for the corners of the map, which means that if you build a recon from here, this recon should actually be somewhere down here, checking to see if I have a APC, shoving infantry down for these cities. So where this recon should have gone, honestly, even before this turn, hold on. This recon should have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This recon should have been here, inside this plane. That's actually maybe a little bit too far. Maybe this plane makes more sense. Just so you have a bit more choice about where you put the recon. But it should be in this plane, and then I would say you might actually want to put it on this city the turn after that, because that would actually give you a lot of information. It would let you know if I built an APC to come out this way, and where roughly my infantry are.
That's very good to know, and I learned something through what you said. Recon day 3, aggressive. Recon day 4, intel. I will keep that in mind. That's actually amazing. I like the idea.
Okay. Here is going to be another part where you make a mistake. Or no, not a mistake, but another reason why this recon is bad here, but it would have been better if it was down here. Okay, so let's take a look at where this comm tower is from my base. If I build a tank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I am barely out of range to cover this infantry. Now, it is possible that I built a tank, and knowing about these vision ranges, I have hit it inside this forest, right? Which means that this infantry could be covered, but you can't see it. But what we want to do now is we want to look at how much damage this recon receives if it is hit on if you were to attack this infantry, how much damage it would take from the road or the plane.
The
So if you
plane,
attack the infantry,
the plane I survive with maybe 1 HP. The road I die.
yeah, that's essentially it. And so you want to be able to attack from this plane so that if I retaliate with it, if I have a tank hidden somewhere and I retaliate and hit it with the tank, your recon survives with 1 HP. Potentially dying if I hit it with my infantry, but really I'd probably want to finish capturing this comm tower. Now, why is it important to hit this infantry? One, first off, it is possible that I have a tank covering this. I think if I like base skip, if I like went for a different capture order and I didn't build this APC, I would have enough money to have a tank hiding in this force. That is possible. But if I were to have a tank in here and you hit this infantry from the flank and then the recon got hit, you would get amazing information. You would know that the very first vehicle I ever bought was a tank from this base, which means that there's not an APC over here and I can't be rushing this, and there's not an APC down here and I can't be rushing that. You get all of that information from a single hit and you get to damage my infantry and slow down this comm tower cap. And you get all of that from this recon. There is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't hit this infantry. And I actually thought about that, and I was thinking of like changing around my opening, but you should absolutely go for this. If you build the recon, you have to hit from here. Now the problem with this is that when you go for the recon first opening and you hit it, I also know that it is impossible for you to prevent my capture of the comm tower. Because what's going to happen is I will send another infantry, and this time I have tank backup. And because you built a recon, you can't have an APC out here, and you can't have tanks streaming over here, which means that the comm tower can't actually be denied long term. You can actually deny the comm tower long term if you don't build recon, you don't build APC, and you stream tanks for the comm tower. Now this is very dangerous and enough for other reasons. But you should know that you can't prevent the comm tower capture with an early recon, but you can get a lot of information and you can slow down my cap phase, but you have to hit an infantry. So this turn is where you make a big mistake. You should have hit my infantry from the road tile, though really you should have been hitting it from this plane tile if your recon was down here where it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will speak about that. I usually never do that. And I was like, he's better than me, I will experience something out. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. So you send your recon here. I didn't notice this. Normally I go back and I check the replay for every day. But at the time we were playing in the middle of Go 7 stream, so I was watching that, and then I was kind of playing on autopilot because I didn't expect us to like run into each other yet. So my infantry here gets trapped, but if I'd been watching the replay, this wouldn't have happened. Now this is very dangerous because again, the city is within like tank range of me, and so like as you see what happens, I get a strike off on your recon before getting hit in infantry.
Yeah.
All right. So here you make this. It's good that you're building B-copters. Very good use of Sasha's day-to-day power to just start spamming air units early. That's a really good idea. I also really like the T-copter. But here you make your sending the recon forward was a mistake, but you make another small mistake here, which is that you send the recon back. And the problem with sending the recon back is that I know how far a recon can move. I saw it go into the forest. And what this means is that the recon has very limited motion. The recon is either in this forest, in this plains tile, or on this city. And knowing that, I can go and I can hunt it down, which is exactly what I do. So what would have been better here, actually, is for you just to hit this infantry with this recon. The infantry wouldn't kill it, and my infantry would be damaged, so it'd take me longer to capture a city.
Yeah.
That's what you should have done.
I will say something. By doing that, I was hoping I could get a shot because he overlapped it. And
but
this
you don't have
would
vision.
be a shot from a CT. But here's the thing. I didn't know you had 2 tanks there. So I'm like, okay, that's bad. The moment I realized you had 2 tanks there is the moment I realized I lost that recon. Because at first I thought that was like your only tank and your other unit. I don't know what you had, but I was like, maybe he has an artillery, maybe he has more recon, maybe he has something else. Like, I was really hoping you only had that tank, but I was wrong. There was a second tank I wasn't seeing at that point.
So even if there had been only one tank, if I can kill that recon, you actually don't have any units here that can get vision of the tank afterwards. Like this recon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It doesn't get anywhere near close to give you vision of my tank to be able to hit it with the tank from the city. So like none of that really applies. You definitely overextend here, and I know you've overextended. I know it's safe for me to kill this. Now I want to bring up one more thing. Here you see me go for the greedy second APC. And the reason why I go for this is that I can send this infantry into the APC, drop it off on the silo tile, and then it is in one turn to get to this city uncaptured. And I've actually left this city uncaptured for a very long time just to get this boost. Now, if you actually go and you start mapping out my capture phase, you'll notice that I never actually lose out on income because of this. And the reason why is that this early APC has been used to shovel infantry forward. So instead of coming here in 2 turns, it went to like here or here in 2 turns. And then like the very first infantries that I sent forward like came to this city. So like I've been very careful with my capture phase to never let the fact that I didn't capture this hurt me. And then I am now using another boost. Now this APC and these recon builds are very dangerous because now I'm kind of dangerously low on the like very aggressive vehicles. So early fights can be bad for me, which I should have been thinking of, but we'll talk about it. I like getting recons at this stage because this is the part where like I start needing information, and you generally need information on both fronts. But there's an argument that what I should have done this turn, it was build maybe like an anti-air, and then I could go with the APC if I really wanted to. Okay, so I go out and I capture things, and this is where we talk about turning a base into a half mech factory. So my intention here is that I am prepared for you to be like accumulating units here and shoving them into my comm tower trying to capture it. And the way that I'm going to fight this off is I'm going to send this artillery down to kind of like be indirect support and help with this area. And then I'm going to send a mech into here and bring it down to this area and drop it off. And so I'm going to keep going back and forth dropping off mechs, and then it is very difficult for your vehicles to attack into that because I have so many mech and it's really cost-effective trades. Now you end up not having vehicles in this area. The con of this strategy is that I am basically foregoing the ability to have effect here. If you had like rushed this, city any earlier with like a transport, you would have gotten it completely uncontested because the strategy that I'm going for doesn't give me pressure onto this corner. Okay, yeah, so I go for like this city. And here, I'm not sure I would have gone for this tank hit. The reason why is that this recon, if you check the replay, you would have seen that this recon saw both of these tanks here.
Yeah.
And I can get a 2 HKO on this tank with my 2 tanks because I could see it. Really better would have been to leave the tank in the rear, and then after it captures, kill the infantry and pop your own infantry on top of it to like recapture it.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah. But you do it the opposite, and I managed to kill your tank. And here is where the thing that I did earlier kind of hurts me. If I had built my anti-air sooner, this anti-air would be here in time to hit the B-copter as it comes in to take a strike. But I took a turn to make a recon APC recon build instead, so now I am a turn too late to reinforce. Now, the flip side of this is that I kind of suspected that you might rush this city. So what the recon let me do was gain vision last turn. Like if you had been like capturing the city this turn, the recon gave me like vision in time to interrupt the capture. But it ended up being that because you sent your initial infantry back here first, your infantry are like just getting to here, and my infantry are actually roughly in the same place. But you're a little slow to get up here, which means that I have time to grab this city.
That's funny
And
because
like,
when you did that with the infantry on the upper road here, I was actually surprised because I didn't realize it was a contested city in higher ILO because in my ILO it's never really contested that building, and I was actually surprised. I was really surprised.
it's tricky for me to grab it. If I build the APC, I can generally grab this if you have it also boosted with your own T-copter. So like when I started capturing the city, and I saw the T-copter. I was like, well, okay, well I'm gonna lose this infantry. But it was a cheeky little thing that I did because if you're not prepared for this, then I can kind of like get this for free. But to be completely honest, these cities are a little bit like unrealistic for me to capture, but I can definitely keep you from capturing them if I dedicate enough resources to this direction. But in this game, I decided to kind of split my forces more evenly. This is actually something that I do fairly frequently. I don't always like slam into one area very hard early, which is an exploitable weakness that I need to work on. But it's just the way that I like to play. So really, this infantry capture is like a little bit too optimistic, and I probably should have just kept it in the forest. Anyways, you get a hit off. So basically, you've traded a full tank for half a tank and half of an infantry, which and stopping me from capturing the city, which isn't bad, but it's not a great value trade. It's you know what? Honestly, I'll call it even. It wasn't terrible. The unit count
It
sucks.
was
but I
terrible.
think
No, it was
no,
terrible.
it
Let's
wasn't
say
that
the
bad.
truth. It was terrible.
No, it really wasn't that terrible. It was. I'll say it's a net neutral move. It is a option you could have taken. Though to be fair, if I had an anti-air here, I would have killed your copter. Though you still have an infantry unit. I'm fine with it. I don't think it was. I don't think it was actually that bad. What
After
is bad?
seeing your infantry on top there, I knew you had a transport. And after seeing two tanks, I was like, there's no way the anti-air is nearby. So you have free shots. I actually thought you had no
So that's
anti-air
not
so far. And I
that's not
was wrong.
actually true. If you like, we talked about this before, but the vehicles that mean the anti-air can't be here are vehicles that you can't see. So it's this recon, this APC, and this recon, which is the reason why this anti-air is here instead of here. But in reality, I could have had an anti-air here. I just wouldn't have recons. But I went for the recons. But even so, that's like one of those things where if you like map out my opening, that could be information. If the anti-air comes here and hits the B-copter, well, you already have tank backup, so it's not the worst thing in the world, and it gives you a lot of information about what I can have elsewhere. Now, the bigger problem that I see is that you have all of these infantry that are completely unsupported, and this is a really bad thing. It's good to have a strong side, and it's okay to have mostly infantry defending your weak side, but they can't be alone. You need to have at least a little bit of support so they can maneuver and they can do a lot more with support than they can without it. And so the first important unit to have is a recon, because infantry don't have great vision without mountains, and recons give you the intel to see how to position your infantry to get off good engagements. So you should always have a recon with your weak infantry. The next thing that I really like to have with my infantry is an artillery, because an artillery can let you take attacks and then protect those infantry from tank counter hits or anti-air counter hits or recon counter hits. And then finally, the next thing that you should add to this army is a B-copter. The B-copter is really good for hitting tanks, and most importantly, it's flexible, it can front shift away, and it fights enemy B-copters. So this is generally the order of units that I would send with my weak side, depending on how strong I want my weak side. But you never want to have nothing, because when your infantry have nothing, they're just going to die. So that's the bigger issue I have with your current gameplay right now. Your attack here and all your choices here are mostly fine. I would have, again, not sent an infantry back here so that you have more pressure up here, but ultimately I don't have too much negative to say about the gameplay. The recon loss was kind of unfortunate, but it's not the biggest deal. Okay, So you push forward, you kill my infantry, that's good. This turn I get a little greedy. I try to start blunting your. I still haven't realized that you have made this your strong side. So I go for some greedy hits, and I just kind of I continue to prepare my defense here because I'm still getting ready for it.
That's funny because at that point I was like, oh, maybe I have a chance. Maybe even if I knew and it was a bad loss, the tank and the recon, I was like, it's not irredeemable, and I think I can maybe come back in the race and come stronger. At that point, I was like, okay, we'll see how it goes.
So this is probably bad of me. Okay, so what was bad here was that I should not have gone. I should not have gone for this infantry hit. I should have been trying to. I should have been trying to get more information. Though you do a really good job of keeping your tanks out of vision from this force, which is where I would want my recon. So yeah, I go for a lot of greedy captures here. There's an argument about how safe this is in general, but I do it. And then I continue to prepare for this fight over here. My recon gives me a lot of information about where your infantry are. I think the most important thing is that when your decopter comes and hits my tank, I realize that, oh right, we had this discussion about how to use Sasha. He's obviously going for the B-copter rush route. So I take the time to build 2 air counters here, knowing that you're probably spamming B-copters right now. Okay. Again, I still think that I am. I still think that like I am going to need to defend here, which is why I set up this mech to be pushed by this ABC. But it's this turn that I realized, oh, you are you've made this your strong side. You've got a bunch of vehicles, and so I think this is the no. This turn I'm still stupid and I still press on, but because right okay. There's actually a good reason for this. So I kill your recon because the vision is really important. I am willing to actually take a decent amount of losses to make sure this recon dies because I have a lot. I'm pretty close to my base and I know I'll be able to fight this off. So when you go in for this attack, the immediate thing you should have done is built a recon from this base.
Yeah. You know why I didn't do it? I needed to save some money for my market crash. I wanted to make sure I shut down your meter.
That's fine, but you should also know that this early in the game, the power charge that's going to get here is not going to be that much. The income that you get from just day to day is already probably enough to shut it completely off. If you felt if you felt really like bad about it, if you wanted to like make sure it was dead, you would maybe save another 5,000, but you have like an extra 7,000 here. It would have been really easy to turn this infantry into a recon. Yeah. Alright. Anyways, so I kill the recon because that is top priority for me, and then I lose my tank and anti-air, which suck. But I also know that you're blind, which gives me which gives me an avail. It's an argument about whether or not it was worth it, but I made a decision at the time. Now, in the bottom right-hand side, let's talk about what's happening here. I feel like you're going for the like, hey, kill off all the infantry and then like nothing here matters. But it's very like dangerous to do this without more information, without mountains to see what's around. And you already know I have 1 recon here. So like you go for like a bunch of attacks trying to damage all my infantry, but I mean you find out the hard way when I have an artillery here.
Yeah.
But basically, like, why this is bad is because these infantry were unsupported, you're going to lose all of them. Yeah. So all of the good that you did up here surprising me with which side was your strong side is going to be lost because I'm going to equalize out the unit count down here, and we're going to be even again. You're still ahead here, but you're not, like, it's not clearly winning. So here, I retreat. And here is the first big mistake that you make. And what that mistake is you push into my HQ. Generally, when someone retreats in front
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Hey, are you back?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, are you on your phone or are you on your computer?
Yeah, my computer crashed. You were right. Oh my, that computer, man, that computer.
I assume
I'm
you're on your phone now, is that right?